The Helix Station's grand assembly hall gleamed with the cold beauty of diplomatic necessity. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across representatives from a dozen worlds, but all eyes focused on the central dais where two civilizations attempted to forge peace. Captain Dex Holt shifted his weight slightly, the movement barely perceptible beneath his dress uniform. Posted along the perimeter with the other human security personnel, he was meant to blend into the background, a living statue with watchful eyes. The real protection supposedly came from the force fields and scanning arrays, not from soldiers, like him carrying ceremonial weapons. But old habits died hard, and Dex's gaze swept the crowd with practiced efficiency, cataloging faces and searching for tells that the machines might miss. On the dais, Princess Kaya Veltar commanded attention, without effort. The Vorthak royal stood nearly 7 feet tall, her pale blue skin marked with intricate silver patterns that seemed to shift in the light. Her people were known for their pride, their rigid codes of honor, and their warrior heritage. Yet there was something graceful about her movements, something that spoke of intelligence beyond mere martial prowess. Her amber eyes met his briefly across the hall, and Dex felt an unexpected jolt of something. Recognition? Curiosity? He forced himself to look away, to remember his place and purpose. The human ambassador droned through another paragraph of the trade agreement, his voice echoing in the vast space. The princess listened with apparent patience, though Dex caught the slight tension in her shoulders that suggested she found these proceedings as tedious as he did. It was then that his peripheral vision caught the anomaly. A figure in the diplomatic section moved wrong, too quick, too purposeful. Dex's training kicked in before conscious thought, his body already turning toward the threat as his eyes tracked the motion. The assassin's arm was already in motion, something small and gleaming arcing through the air toward the dais. The blade was unlike anything in the security briefings, curved, organic-looking with a sickly green sheen that spoke of poison or worse. It flew in perfect silence, spinning end over end toward Princess Kaya's exposed back. Time stretched like molten glass. Dex saw the trajectory, calculated distances and velocities in the span of a heartbeat. The princess hadn't noticed, still, focused on the ambassador's words. The other guards were too far away, their attention focused on different sectors. There was only one choice. Dex launched himself forward, his polished boots finding purchase on the smooth floor as he sprinted. Across the hall, shouts erupted around him as security protocols activated, but he was already airborne, throwing himself into the blade's path with desperate precision. The weapon took him high in the chest, punching through his uniform and into flesh with a wet sound that seemed impossibly loud. Fire spread through his veins immediately, definitely poisoned. His momentum carried him into the princess, both of them tumbling to the dais floor in a tangle of limbs. Princess Kaya's amber eyes were wide with shock as she looked down at him, her hands instinctively moving to the wound in his chest. Her touch was surprisingly gentle for someone from a warrior race. "Why?" she whispered in accented standard, her voice carrying harmonics that her people's physiology allowed. Dex tried to answer, but his tongue felt thick and unresponsive. The poison was working fast, sending lightning through his nervous system. All he could do was look up at her face, noting how the silver patterns on her skin seemed to pulse with some inner light. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness claimed him was her expression. Not just gratitude, but something deeper. Something that would change everything. The medical bay's sterile hum provided a constant backdrop as Princess Kaya maintained her vigil beside the human's bed. 3 days had passed since Captain Dex Holt had thrown himself between her and death, and still he lay motionless, his chest rising and falling with mechanical precision thanks to the life support systems. The Vorthak medical team had worked alongside their human counterparts to neutralize the exotic poison, a cocktail designed specifically to kill her people. That it had nearly killed him instead seemed a cruel irony that twisted something deep in her chest. "Your Highness." The voice belonged to Elder Thane Mordak, her chief advisor, whose arrival she had been both expecting and dreading. "We must speak." Kaya didn't turn from the bed. "If this is about returning to the homeworld, It is about Velmorai. The ancient word hung in the air like a blade. The life debt has been invoked. Her hands stilled on the datapad she'd been pretending to read. Velmorai, the sacred law older than their written history, carved into the very foundation of Vorthak culture. She had known this moment would come. He saved a royal life at the cost of his own well-being, Mordak continued, his voice carrying the weight of tradition. The debt demands the greatest offering we can give. Myself. The words tasted strange on her tongue. Your body, your title, your bond, all must be offered freely to honor his sacrifice. It is the way. Kaya finally turned to face her advisor, noting how the other Vorthak in the room had grown still. Even the human medical staff seemed to sense the gravity of the moment, though they couldn't understand the words being spoken in her native tongue. And if he refuses? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Then the shame falls upon our entire bloodline. The debt remains unpaid, and our honor dies with it. Mordak's expression softened slightly. But perhaps it need not be a burden. I have watched you these past days, child. You barely leave his side. Heat crept up her neck, a very human response she'd somehow adopted. It was true. Something about this man drew her, had drawn her even before his sacrifice. The way he'd looked at her during the ceremony, without the usual mixture of fear and disgust that humans often showed her people, just interest, respect. The preparations must begin, Mordak said. The cleansing rituals, the binding ceremonies. When he wakes, he will be confused and injured. Kaya interrupted. This law of ours will seem like madness to him. Then you must help him understand. Make him see that this is not a chain, but a gift. After Mordak left, Kaya found herself alone with Dex once again. She moved closer to the bed, studying his face. Strong features, a jaw that spoke of determination, and even in unconsciousness an expression that suggested he carried the weight of protecting others. She reached out tentatively, her fingertips brushing against his forehead. His skin was warm, feverish from the lingering effects of the poison. At her touch he stirred slightly, his breathing changing rhythm. I know you cannot hear me, she whispered in standard, her accent making the words flow like music. But I want you to know, what you did was not just brave, it was beautiful. You saw someone in danger and acted without thought for yourself. My people value such courage above all else. Her hand moved to rest over his heart, feeling its steady beat through the medical gown. The law says I must offer myself to you, but the truth is, I find myself wanting to make that offering. Is that strange? We barely know each other yet. I feel... She trailed off, uncertain how to express the pull she felt toward this human who had literally taken a blade meant for her. It went beyond gratitude, beyond duty. When she looked at him, she felt something she'd never experienced before. A desire to belong to someone not because law demanded it, but because her heart did. The medical monitor's soft beeping seemed to accelerate slightly, and she realized his eyes were beginning to flutter. Panic and anticipation warred in her chest as she prepared to explain to him that his single act of heroism had bound them together in ways neither of them could have imagined. She only hoped he would see it, as the gift she desperately wanted it to be. Consciousness returned to Dex like a slow tide, bringing with it the antiseptic smell of the medical bay and a dull ache radiating from his chest. His eyes opened to find soft, ambient lighting instead of the harsh fluorescence he'd expected, and the sound of singing. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, composed of harmonics no human throat could produce. As his vision cleared, he saw Princess Kaya seated beside his bed, her tall frame curved gracefully as she worked on something, in her lap. The silver patterns on her skin seemed to pulse gently in rhythm with her song. You're awake. Her amber eyes met his, and he caught something vulnerable in their depths before she composed herself. How do you feel? Like I got stabbed with an alien poison blade, Dex managed, his voice rough from disuse. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as pain lanced through his chest. "Please, don't move too quickly." Her hand was on his shoulder, steadying him with surprising gentleness. "The wound is healing, but the poison did significant damage to your nervous system." As his awareness sharpened, Dex noticed details that seemed out of place. Candles flickered around the room despite the medical equipment. Intricate symbols had been drawn on the floor in what looked like silver powder. And Princess Kaya herself was dressed differently. Instead of her formal diplomatic attire, she wore a flowing garment that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. "Princess, what? Kaya?" she interrupted softly. "Please. After what has passed between us, formality seems inadequate." "What's passed between us?" Confusion clouded his thoughts. "I remember the attack, throwing myself in front of that blade, but after that..." Kaya's hand stilled on whatever she'd been crafting. Dex could see now that it was some kind of intricate braided cord, woven with precious metals and what looked like crystalline beads. "Among my people," she began carefully, "there exists an ancient law called Velmorai. When someone saves a royal life at great personal cost, a debt is created that can only be repaid through the greatest offering possible." Dex's military training kicked in, analyzing the situation. The ceremonial setup, her nervous energy, the way she couldn't quite meet his eyes. "What kind of offering?" "Myself." The words came out in a rush. "My body, my title, my bond. Everything I am becomes yours to command. It is the way my people honor such sacrifice." The silence stretched between them, broken only by the soft hum of medical equipment. Dex stared at her, trying to process what she'd just said. "You're telling me that because I did my job, protected someone who was in danger, your culture says you belong to me now?" Pain flickered across Kaya's features. "It is not ownership as humans understand it. It is partnership, bonding, a recognition that your life and mine are now intertwined by fate and honor. And if I refuse, then my family's honor dies, and the shame follows our bloodline for generations." She finally looked at him directly, and he saw the conflict warring in her amber eyes. "But I must tell you truthfully, this law exists because my people believe that such selfless courage deserves the greatest reward we can offer. It is meant to be a gift, not a burden." Dex tried to sit up again, ignoring the pain. "Kaya, I can't. Except, please." She leaned forward, her hand covering his. The touch sent an unexpected jolt through him, electric and warm. "Let me finish the ritual. Let me explain what it truly means." She lifted the braided cord she'd been working on, a complex weaving of silver, gold, and deep blue threads interspersed with crystals that seemed to hold their own inner light. "This is a bonding cord, woven with metals from my homeworld, and crystals that resonate with my life force. If you accept it, you accept me, not as a slave or possession, but as a partner bound to you by choice and honor." Her fingers trembled slightly as she held the cord between them. "I will not lie to you, Dex Holt. When I watched you throw yourself into harm's way for me, something awakened in my heart. The law may require this offering, but my feelings make it something I want to give." The admission hung in the air between them, vulnerable and honest. Dex found himself studying her face, the elegant bone structure, the way her alien features somehow managed to be both exotic and beautiful, the genuine emotion in her expression. "You barely know me," he said softly. "I know you value other lives, above your own. I know you act on instinct to protect others. I know you have kind eyes and gentle hands." She smiled, and it transformed her entire face. Perhaps that is enough for a beginning. Without fully understanding why, Dex found himself reaching for the cord. The moment his fingers touched it, warmth spread up his arm, and he could swear. He felt an echo of her heartbeat in his own chest. "What happens now?" he asked. Kaya's smile deepened, and for the first time since he'd awakened, she looked truly happy. "Now we learn what it means to be bound together by something stronger than law or duty." The bonding cord felt warm against Dex's wrist as he walked through the diplomatic quarters 3 days later, still moving carefully to avoid aggravating his healing wound. The crystalline beads caught the station's artificial light, pulsing, with a rhythm that seemed to match his heartbeat, or perhaps Kaya's. He was beginning to understand that the connection between them ran deeper than mere symbolism. "You're troubled." Kaya's voice came from behind him, and he turned to find her, in the doorway of their shared quarters. Another adjustment he was still processing. According to Vorthak custom, they now shared living space, meals, and according to the increasingly heated looks she'd been giving him, soon much more. The human diplomatic corps isn't exactly thrilled about this arrangement, Dex admitted. "Ambassador Chen thinks I've compromised the entire mission by getting entangled with you." Kaya moved closer, her tall frame graceful despite the low gravity that felt natural to her people. "And the Vorthak Council believes I am dishonoring our bloodline by bonding with a lesser species." Her amber eyes flashed with anger. "It seems we have disappointed everyone, have we?" The question came out more vulnerable than he'd intended. "Disappointed everyone, I mean." She studied his face with that intense focus he was learning to recognize. "Do you regret accepting the cord?" Instead of answering immediately, Dex reached for her hand, marveling at how her long fingers interlaced perfectly with his despite their different anatomies. The moment their skin touched, that electric warmth spread through him again, stronger than before. "I can feel you," he said quietly. "Your emotions, your heartbeat. Is that normal?" The bond deepens with acceptance and proximity. Kaya's voice had grown husky, and he noticed how her breathing had quickened. "The more we embrace it, the stronger the connection becomes. And if we embrace it completely?" Her eyes darkened, the amber shifting to deep gold. "Then we become truly bonded, heart, mind, and body. Two souls sharing one destiny." The air between them seemed to crackle with tension. They'd been dancing around this moment for days, the attraction growing stronger with each shared glance, each accidental touch. Now, alone in their quarters, with the weight of their forced intimacy pressing down on them, the careful barriers they'd maintained began to crumble. "Kaya," he started, but she stepped closer, her hand coming up to rest against his chest, carefully avoiding his healing wound. "I can feel your heart racing," she whispered. "Your desire matches mine." Before he could respond, she leaned down and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if she were afraid he might pull away. But when he responded, threading his fingers through her hair and pulling her closer, it deepened into something hungry and desperate. Her skin was warm silk beneath his hands, the silver patterns seeming to pulse with inner fire where he touched them. She made a sound, deep in her throat, part purr, part moan that sent heat straight to his core. "The bed," she gasped against his mouth, and he didn't need to be told twice. They moved together with the careful urgency of new lovers afraid to break the spell, his hands mapping the alien landscape of her body while she explored his with wonder and growing passion. When she arched beneath him, her amber eyes wide with pleasure and trust, something fundamental shifted between them. This wasn't just about honoring ancient laws or political necessity anymore. This was about two people who had found something rare and precious in each other, despite the circumstances that had brought them together. Afterward, as they lay entwined in the afterglow, Kaya traced patterns on his chest with one long finger. "The bond is complete now," she said softly. "Can you feel it?" Dex could. It was as if a part of her had taken up residence in his mind, not intrusive but comforting. He could sense her contentment, her happiness, and underneath it all, something that made his breath catch. "You love me," he said, wonder in his voice. "Yes." No hesitation, no shame. "And you are beginning to love me." It was true, though he hadn't fully acknowledged it until she said the words. What had started as duty and attraction was growing into something deeper, something that transcended the cultural barriers between them. "What happens now?" he asked, echoing his question from days before. Now we face the consequences of choosing each other over our people's expectations. Kaya's expression grew serious. There are those on both sides who will see our bond as a threat to the peace negotiations. Then we make sure they understand that we're stronger together than apart. Dex pulled her closer, feeling the steady rhythm of her heart's against his chest. We prove that love can bridge any divide. Kaya smiled, but he could sense her lingering worry through their bond. Neither of them knew what challenges lay ahead, but they would face them as they had faced everything else, together. The attack came at dawn, during the shift change when security was at its most vulnerable. Dex woke to the sound of plasma fire in the corridors and Kaya's sharp intake of breath beside him as their bond carried the taste of danger through both their minds. "The real assassins," she whispered, her warrior instincts immediately alert. "They've come to finish what they started." Dex was already moving, pulling on his uniform while his mind processed tactical possibilities. Through their bond, he could feel Kaya's battle readiness rising to match his own, a synchronization that would have taken years to develop through training alone. "How many?" he asked, checking his sidearm. "At least a dozen, heavily armed." Her amber eyes had gone cold and calculating. "They're not just after me now. They want to eliminate our bond before it can become a symbol of unity between our peoples." The irony wasn't lost on him. What their respective governments saw as a diplomatic complication, their enemies viewed as a genuine threat. Their love had become a weapon against those who profited from division. They moved through their quarters, with practiced efficiency, Kia grabbing ceremonial weapons that Dex now realized were far from merely decorative. The curved blades hummed with energy as she activated them, their glow casting silver light across her determined features. "The main corridor," she said, and he nodded, feeling her tactical assessment through their connection. They would make their stand where the enemy had to come to them, using the narrow space to negate their numerical advantage. The first wave of attackers rounded the corner in a disciplined formation, not the desperate fanatics Dex had expected, but professional soldiers in unmarked armor. His shots took down 2 before they could return fire, while Kaya moved like liquid death, her blades carving through their ranks with surgical precision. But there were too many, and more kept coming. A plasma bolt grazed Dex's shoulder, spinning him around just as another attacker lunged with a vibroblade. He would have died then, but Kaya was there, her own blade intercepting the strike in a shower of sparks. They fought back to back, their bond allowing them to anticipate each other's movements perfectly. When he ducked, she struck high. When she spun left, he covered right. They moved as one organism, deadly and graceful. "The leader," Kaya gasped during a brief lull, nodding toward a figure directing the assault from the far end of the corridor. "Ambassador Velmorai from the isolationist faction. He orchestrated everything to prevent the alliance." Dex felt her surge of betrayal. Velmorai had been like an uncle to her, someone she'd trusted. Through their bond, she felt his answering rage, on her behalf his protective instincts flaring white-hot. "Together?" he asked, and she smiled fiercely. They charged as one, cutting through the remaining attackers with desperate determination. Velmorai raised his weapon, but their combined assault was too fast, too synchronized. Kaya's blade took his gun arm while Dex's shot disabled his armor, leaving him helpless and exposed. "You have doomed both our peoples," Velmorai snarled, blue, blood trickling from his wounded arm. "This obscene bonding will weaken us all." "No," Kaya said, her voice carrying absolute conviction. "It will make us stronger." Security forces finally arrived, led by both human and Vorthak officers working in unprecedented cooperation. As the area was secured and prisoners taken into custody, Dex and Kaya found themselves standing amid the aftermath of their first battle. As true partners, "The bond saved us," she said quietly, leaning against him despite the eyes watching them. "We fought as one being." "More than that," Dex replied, feeling the truth of it in his bones. "We chose to fight for each other, not because law demanded it, but because love did." Elder Mordak approached them, his expression unreadable. Behind him came Ambassador Chen and several other human officials, their faces showing a mixture of concern and grudging respect. "The assassination plot has been exposed," Mordak said formally. "Both our peoples owe you a debt of gratitude." "There is no debt," Kaya replied, standing straighter. "We acted not as representatives of our species, but as partners defending our chosen bond." "Chosen?" Chen repeated thoughtfully. "Not mandated by your law?" Kaya looked at Dex, and through their connection, he felt her certainty and joy. "The Velmorai brought us together, but what we have now transcends ancient laws. I offer myself to him not because tradition demands it, but because my heart chooses it freely. And I accept not because I must," Dex added, taking her hand, "but because I cannot imagine my life without her in it. The political implications would take months to sort out, but in that moment, surrounded by the evidence of their perfect partnership, even the skeptics began to see the possibilities. A human and Vorthak who could fight as one, love as one, perhaps even lead as one. Later, in the quiet of their quarters, they made love with a desperate tenderness that spoke of nearly losing each other. As Kaya moved above him, her silver patterns, glowing with post-battle adrenaline and desire, Dex felt their bond settle into something permanent and unbreakable. "Whatever comes next," she whispered against his lips, "we face it together." "Together," he agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss that tasted of forever. Their love had begun with ancient law and a moment of sacrifice, but it would endure because they had chosen it, freely, completely and without reservation. In a universe that often seemed bent on division, they had found unity in the most unexpected place, in each other's hearts.